They say revenge is a dish best served cold. In my case, it was served with a side of business contracts and a newfound sense of purpose. My name is Olivia Chen, and for 8 years I poured my heart and soul into Garrison and Brooks, one of Chicago's premier legal consulting firms. I was the firm's most skilled contract specialist, the one partners called when a deal was going sideways or when they needed complex legal language translated into actionable business terms. My billable hours consistently ranked in the top 5%. My client satisfaction scores were impeccable. My technical abilities were unmatched. None of that mattered when promotion time came around. I sat across from Marcus in his corner office, maintaining a practiced neutral expression as he shuffled papers on his mahogany desk. The morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating downtown Chicago's skyline, a view I'd always envied from my windowless interior office. "Olivia, you know I value your contributions to the firm," Marcus began, not meeting my eyes. I recognized the preamble immediately. It was the third time I'd heard it in as many years. "But the executive committee has decided to promote Vanessa to senior contract director." My stomach clenched, but I managed to keep my expression neutral. "I see. It's not a reflection on your technical skills, which are, of course, outstanding," Marcus continued, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd grown to despise. "But Vanessa has demonstrated significant executive presence. Her networking abilities are exceptional, and she's developed strong relationships with the management team." Translation: Vanessa laughed at the right jokes, joined the right country clubs, and knew exactly which wines to recommend at client dinners. Meanwhile, I was too busy actually doing the work to play the politics. "The committee feels she's ready to take on a more visible leadership role," he concluded. I nodded slowly, careful to maintain my composure. "May I ask what areas I should focus on developing?" Marcus leaned back in his leather chair, seemingly relieved I wasn't making a scene. "You might consider polishing your presentation skills, perhaps take more initiative in client meetings, show more dynamism." More meaningless corporate jargon. What he really meant was that I should be more like Vanessa, more style, less substance. "Thank you for the feedback," I said evenly. "I'll take it under consideration." As I walked back to my office, I passed Vanessa's desk. She gave me a sympathetic smile that didn't reach her eyes. We both knew she didn't deserve this promotion. Just last month, I'd had to completely rewrite her contract for the Peterson account to fix 3 critical errors that would have exposed our client to significant liability. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that she'd spent months cultivating a relationship with Marcus, laughing too loudly at his jokes, and staying late to collaborate on projects that mysteriously never seemed to produce tangible results. I closed my office door quietly behind me and sat at my desk, staring at the mountain of files, all representing clients who relied on my expertise rather than my executive presence. A slow, simmering anger began to build in my chest. This wasn't just about a promotion anymore. This was about a fundamentally broken system that rewarded the wrong things and hurt our clients in the process. I opened my laptop and started a new document. The title was simple: Resignation Plan. But this wouldn't be just any resignation. After 8 years of being overlooked despite my expertise, I was going to do more than just quit. I was going to take everything I'd learned and use it to build something better. Something that would show Marcus and the entire executive committee exactly what they'd lost. And I knew exactly where to start. The next day, I requested a meeting with Alina, our finance director, who was 3 months from retirement after 30 years with the firm. Alina had always been fair with me, and more importantly, she'd never been afraid to point out the firm's inefficiencies. We met in the small cafe across from our office building, away from prying eyes and ears. "I was sorry to hear about the promotion," Alina said, stirring her tea. "For what it's worth, I voted for you." I smiled thinly. "Thank you, but I've decided it's time for a change." Alina raised an eyebrow. "You're leaving." "I'm planning to," I confirmed. "But not just to join another firm. I'm thinking of starting my own." Alina set down her spoon, giving me her full attention. "Go on." "I've been working on a new model, outcome-based pricing rather than billable hours. Clients pay for results, not time. It aligns our incentives with theirs." Alina's eyes gleamed. "Do you know how long I've been pushing for something like that? The partners won't hear of it. It would slash their profits. Their short-term profits, I corrected. I believe it would actually increase long-term profitability by building deeper client loyalty and attracting businesses who are tired of being nickeled and dimed. Elinor nodded thoughtfully. You might be right, but you'll need capital, clients, a team. That's partly why I wanted to meet with you, I said, leaning forward. Your financial expertise would be invaluable, and I know you've been looking for a part-time consulting role after retirement. A slow smile spread across Elinor's face. Are you offering me a job, Olivia? I'm offering you a partnership, I clarified. 20% equity, limited hours, full strategic input. Elinor's eyes widened slightly. You're serious about this? Dead serious. She took a sip of her tea, considering. Who else are you approaching? I have meetings lined up with Daniel Morrison from Walker & Reed, their contract specialist who's been similarly overlooked. Patricia Williams from Lawson Group, who developed that revolutionary compliance system they take credit for. And Ryan Patel from JH Legal, who's widely considered the best research analyst in Chicago but can't get promoted because he lacks the right pedigree. Elinor nodded appreciatively. The overlooked talent, smart. And, I added, I'm having lunch with Alexander Westbrook next week. Elinor nearly choked on her tea. Alexander Westbrook, CEO of Westbrook Industries, Garrison & Brooks' biggest client. I smiled, the very same. He'll never leave. Marcus practically lives at his office. Marcus charges him by the hour and drags out simple contracts for weeks, I pointed out. Alexander is a businessman. He'll appreciate our value proposition. Elinor studied me for a long moment, then slowly nodded. I'm in, but we'll need office space, technology infrastructure, marketing materials. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. I've been planning this for longer than you might think. As Elinor flipped through my business plan, complete with financial projections, potential office locations, and marketing strategies, her smile grew wider. You know, she said finally, I always told Marcus you were the most dangerous kind of talent, the kind that makes everything look effortless. He never quite grasped what I meant. I allowed myself a small smile. He will. Over the next 6 weeks, I maintained perfect attendance at Garrison & Brooks, handling my caseload with the same precision and care I always had. But my evenings and weekends were devoted to bringing my new venture to life. Elinor was invaluable, helping me refine the financial model and opening doors to potential investors. Daniel, Patricia, and Ryan all eagerly signed on, equally frustrated with their current situations and excited by our vision. We secured a lease on a converted factory space in the West Loop, open, airy, and a far cry from the sterile corporate environment of Garrison & Brooks. The rent was reasonable, and the space projected exactly the image we wanted, innovative, collaborative, and transparent. But the real coup was my lunch with Alexander Westbrook. The moment his assistant had accepted my invitation, I knew I had a fighting chance. We met at a quiet restaurant overlooking the Chicago River, and I made sure to arrive 15 minutes early. Alexander was punctual, striding in with the confidence of a man who ran a $2.8 billion technology company. He was in his mid-50s, with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes that missed nothing. Olivia, he said, shaking my hand firmly. I was intrigued by your invitation. You've been handling our contracts for what, 5 years now? 6, I corrected with a smile. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. You run a fascinating company. We ordered, making small talk about his latest product launch. I waited until our meals arrived before steering the conversation toward my purpose. Alexander, I'll get straight to the point. I'm leaving Garrison & Brooks to start my own consulting firm, and I'd like Westbrook Industries to be our founding client. He paused, fork halfway to his mouth. Bold move, he said finally. Why would I leave Garrison & Brooks? Marcus has been servicing our account personally for a decade. Because I'm offering something Marcus can't, outcome-based pricing. Alexander set down his fork. Explain. You currently pay Garrison & Brooks approximately $3.8 million annually in legal consulting fees, I said. Based on my analysis, about 40% of that goes to repetitive contract reviews, negotiations that drag on unnecessarily, and research that could be streamlined. His eyes narrowed. Go on. I'm proposing a new model. We charge based on outcomes, not hours. Fixed fees for standardized contracts. Success fees for negotiations, based on the value we help you capture or protect. And we'll create a database of pre-approved clauses specific to Westbrook Industries that will cut review time by 60%. I slid a folder across the table. This proposal would reduce your annual legal consulting expenses by at least 25% while providing more responsive service and faster turnaround times. Alexander spent several minutes reviewing the documents, his expression unreadable. When he looked up, there was a new respect in his eyes. "You've thought this through." "I've been thinking about it for years," I admitted. "The billable hour model creates perverse incentives. It rewards inefficiency and penalizes expertise. I can draft a perfect contract in 2 hours that would take someone else 8, but under the current system, I'm essentially punished for my efficiency." Alexander nodded slowly. "And your new firm, what are you calling it?" "Summit Partners," I replied, "because we help our clients reach their peak potential." "And who else is on your team?" I outlined our core team: Alina's financial expertise, Daniel's international contract experience, Patricia's compliance innovation, and Ryan's research brilliance. "All top talent," Alexander noted, "all overlooked at their current firms." "We value substance over style," I said simply. Alexander was quiet for a moment, then leaned back in his chair. "I've been frustrated with the billable hour model for years. Marcus knows it, but he always tells me it's the industry standard." "It is," I acknowledged, "but standards change, someone has to go first." "And that someone is you." There was a hint of amusement in his voice. "With your help," I countered. "As our founding client, Westbrook Industries would set the trend, others would follow." Alexander took a sip of water, considering. "What would Marcus say if he knew you were poaching his biggest client?" I met his gaze steadily. "He'd probably remind you of your long-standing relationship and all the rounds of golf you've played together. He'd emphasize the risk of switching to an unproven firm, and he'd be right. There is risk." Alexander raised an eyebrow, surprised by my candor. "But," I continued, "he wouldn't be able to offer you what we can, because doing so would require him to fundamentally restructure how Garrison and Brooks operates. Their entire model is built on maximizing billable hours. Ours is built on maximizing client success." Alexander studied me, tapping his fingers thoughtfully on the table. "Draw up the contracts," he said finally. "I'm not making any promises, but I want to see the details." I smiled, careful not to appear too triumphant. "You'll have them by tomorrow." As we parted ways outside the restaurant, Alexander shook my hand again. "You know, Olivia, I always wondered why you weren't more senior at Garrison and Brooks. You're clearly the sharpest mind on our account." "Sometimes it takes leaving to be truly valued," I replied. He nodded, a knowing gleam in his eye. "Indeed, I look forward to those contracts." Back at my apartment that evening, I worked until midnight perfecting the Westbrook Industries contracts. They needed to be flawless, not just legally sound, but also clear, concise, and compelling. They would be the first real product of Summit Partners, and I was determined they would showcase everything our new firm stood for. When I finally sent them to Alexander just before 1 a.m., I felt a surge of satisfaction unlike anything I'd experienced in years. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about building something truly valuable, something I believed in. 3 days later, Alexander's signed contracts arrived in my personal email, along with a brief message. "Let's change the industry." It was time for the next phase of my plan. I chose a Tuesday for my resignation, typically the day when Marcus held his weekly status meeting with the executive committee. Timing was crucial. I spent the morning finalizing my last few assignments, ensuring every detail was perfect. At 11:30, I tucked the Westbrook Industries contracts into a folder along with my resignation letter and made my way to Marcus's office. His assistant, Claire, looked up as I approached. "He's preparing for the executive committee meeting, Olivia. Can it wait?" "I'm afraid not," I said pleasantly. "It will only take a moment." Claire hesitated, then buzzed Marcus. After a brief exchange, she nodded toward his door. "Go ahead." Marcus was standing at his window, phone to his ear. He held up a finger as I entered, signaling me to wait. I stood patiently, taking in the office that had been the site of so many disappointments over the years. Finally, he ended his call. "What is it, Olivia? I'm rather busy today." "I'll be brief," I promised, stepping forward and placing the folder on his desk. "I'm resigning effective immediately." Marcus blinked, taken aback. "Immediately? That's highly unusual. We typically expect at least 2 weeks' notice, especially from someone at your level." "Under normal circumstances, I would agree," I said calmly. "However, given my new venture, it seems appropriate to make a clean break." "New venture?" Marcus's expression darkened. "You're joining a competitor." "In a manner of speaking," I gestured to the folder. "I'm starting my own firm, Summit Partners. We'll be specializing in outcome-based legal consulting rather than the billable hour model." Marcus frowned, picking up the folder. "Outcome-based? That's a pipe dream, Olivia. Clients want predictability." "Actually, clients want value," I corrected gently, "which is why Westbrook Industries has agreed to be our founding client." Marcus froze, the folder halfway open. "What did you just say?" "The signed contracts are in the folder," I said. "Alexander and I finalized the details last week." Marcus's face flushed as he flipped through the documents, his eyes widening as he absorbed the scope of the agreement. This is highly unethical. You've been planning this while still employed here." "I've been planning my future," I clarified. "And there's nothing in my employment contract that prohibits it. I've been careful not to use company resources or time." "Westbrook is our largest client," Marcus sputtered, his composure cracking. "You can't just—" "I didn't just anything," I interrupted, my tone still calm but now carrying an edge. "I offered Alexander a superior value proposition, and he made a business decision, just as I did when you passed me over for promotion for the third time." Marcus stared at me, momentarily speechless. In the silence, I heard the elevator ding in the hallway, right on schedule, the executive committee members arriving for their meeting. "You planned this timing," Marcus realized, his voice low. "You wanted me to face the committee right after losing our biggest client." I allowed myself a small smile. "Consider it my parting gift, a lesson in recognizing undervalued talent." "This won't work," Marcus said, regaining some of his composure. "Westbrook may have signed, but you can't build a firm overnight. You don't have the infrastructure, the reputation." "I have a team of outstanding professionals who, like me, were overlooked at their firms. I have a business model that aligns our success with our clients. And as of this morning, I have office space in the West Loop, fully furnished and operational." I checked my watch. "In fact, we're having our first official team meeting at 2 p.m. Marcus's jaw tightened. "You'll regret this, Olivia. The legal consulting world is smaller than you think." "You're right about that," I agreed. "Word travels fast. By this time tomorrow, every chief legal officer in Chicago will have heard about Summit Partners and our innovative approach." I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Marcus, you might want to review the Peterson account. Vanessa made some rather significant errors in the latest contract revision. I fixed them, of course, but it's something to keep in mind as you consider where to allocate her new responsibilities." I walked out, closing the door quietly behind me. As I passed the conference room, I could see the executive committee members settling in, unaware that their agenda was about to be dramatically altered. Claire stared at me, wide-eyed, clearly having overheard at least part of the exchange. I gave her a genuine smile. She'd always been kind to me, despite her loyalty to Marcus. "Take care, Claire." The elevator doors closed on my old life, and I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. 8 years of compromise, of watching less qualified colleagues advance, of having my expertise taken for granted, all of it falling away as I descended to the lobby. Outside, the Chicago summer sun was bright and warm. I hailed a taxi and gave the driver the address of our new office. "Summit Partners," I said aloud, testing the name. It sounded right. It sounded like the future. Our office in the converted factory space gleamed in the afternoon light. The exposed brick walls and wooden beams gave it character, while the modern furnishings and technology signaled our forward-thinking approach. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago skyline, a view I'd earned rather than inherited. At precisely 2 p.m., I stood before my new team in our conference room. Elinor, Daniel, Patricia, and Ryan looked back at me with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. We'd all taken significant risks to be here. "Welcome to the first official meeting of Summit Partners," I began, feeling a surge of pride. As of 30 minutes ago, I formally resigned from Garrison and Brooks, and I'm pleased to confirm that Alexander Westbrook has signed our contracts. Westbrook Industries is officially our founding client. A ripple of excitement ran through the room. Elena, ever practical, was the first to speak. How did Marcus take it? About as well as you'd expect, I replied with a small smile. But that's no longer our concern. What matters now is delivering on our promises to Alexander and building the reputation of Summit Partners. I spent the next hour outlining our immediate priorities, finalizing our client management systems, establishing our knowledge database, and preparing our pitch materials for potential new clients. Each team member had specific responsibilities, leveraging their unique strengths. Questions? I asked, concluding the formal part of the meeting. Ryan raised his hand. What's our response if our former firms come after us? Mine has a pretty aggressive non-compete. We've vetted everyone's contracts carefully, I assured him. None of you have enforceable non-competes that would prevent you from working with Summit Partners. As for clients, we're offering a fundamentally different service model, which gives us strong legal grounds if challenged. Patricia leaned forward. And what about Marcus? He doesn't strike me as someone who takes defeat gracefully. I nodded, acknowledging the concern. Marcus will likely try to discredit us in the market. He'll emphasize our lack of experience as an organization and question our ability to handle complex matters. Our job is to let our work speak for itself. And Westbrook? Daniel asked. Can we be sure they'll stick with us if Garrison and Brooks comes back with a competitive offer? Alexander didn't sign with us solely because of price, I explained. He signed because our model aligns with his business philosophy. He's a true partner, not just a client. I paused. That said, we need to exceed his expectations from day one. His satisfaction will be our most powerful marketing tool. Elena, who had been quiet for most of the meeting, finally spoke up. I've been in this business for 30 years, she said, looking around the table. I've seen firms come and go. I've seen innovations embraced and rejected. What we're doing here isn't just about changing a billing model. It's about changing a mindset, putting the client's success at the center of everything we do. She smiled at me. And I haven't been this excited about coming to work in at least a decade. Her words sent a warm ripple of affirmation through the room. This wasn't just about getting back at Marcus anymore. This was about building something meaningful. As the meeting concluded and everyone dispersed to their tasks, I remained in the conference room, looking out at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, Marcus was damage controlling with the executive committee, scrambling to explain the loss of their largest client. But I was already moving forward. The past was prologue, the future was ours to write. The Midwest Legal Innovation Conference was the premier industry event of the year, drawing firms from across the country. Summit Partners had secured a coveted speaking slot, a testament to the buzz we'd generated in just 6 months of operation. As I prepared in my hotel room, I reflected on our progress. We'd not only retained Westbrook Industries, but had added 6 more significant clients, all drawn to our outcome-based model. Our team had grown from 5 to 12, each new hire bringing exceptional talent and a commitment to our vision. Garrison and Brooks, meanwhile, was struggling. After losing Westbrook, they'd lost 2 more major clients within months. Industry gossip suggested Marcus was under intense pressure from the executive committee to stem the bleeding. My phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Spotted Marcus in the lobby, looking haggard, Vanessa not with him. I smiled slightly. According to our sources, Vanessa had lasted only 4 months as senior contract director before being quietly demoted. The Peterson account errors, which I'd mentioned to Marcus during my resignation, had been just the tip of the iceberg. The conference hall was packed when I took the stage. My presentation, The Future of Legal Consulting, Aligning Incentives Through Outcome-Based Pricing, had drawn a standing room-only crowd. As I spoke, I noticed Marcus slip into the back of the room. Our eyes met briefly, and I continued without missing a beat, outlining how Summit Partners had reduced Westbrook Industries' legal expenses by 28% while improving contract turnaround time by 40%. The billable hour model served its purpose for decades, I concluded. But in today's business environment, clients demand more than just time. They demand results. By aligning our success with theirs, we create true partnerships rather than just vendor relationships. The applause was gratifying, but the real measure of success came during the networking reception afterward. A steady stream of legal officers and business executives approached me, eager to learn more about our model. Several handed me their cards, requesting follow-up meetings. I was speaking with the general counsel of a major healthcare company when I felt a presence at my elbow. Impressive presentation. I turned to find Marcus standing there, a forced smile on his face. He looked tired, the confident sheen I remembered notably diminished. "Thank you," I replied neutrally. "Your success has certainly been remarkable," he continued, his tone suggesting he was making a significant concession by acknowledging it. "We've been fortunate to find clients who value our approach," I said diplomatically. "And some of them former Garrison and Brooks clients," he noted, a hint of bitterness breaking through. I met his gaze directly, clients who chose a model that better serves their needs. The general counsel, sensing tension, excused herself, leaving Marcus and me in an uneasy tete-a-tete. "The executive committee has asked me to explore incorporating elements of your model," Marcus admitted, the words clearly costing him. "Would you be open to discussing some form of collaboration?" I couldn't help but smile at the irony. "Are you offering me a job, Marcus?" He flushed slightly. "More of a consulting arrangement. Your expertise would be valuable as we adapt to market changes." Translation: Garrison and Brooks was hemorrhaging clients, and the executive committee was desperate for a lifeline. "I'm flattered," I said, "but Summit Partners requires my full attention. We're growing rapidly." "So I've heard," Marcus said stiffly. "Your reputation is spreading." "Just as yours is," I replied pointedly. Marcus's jaw tightened. "You know, I always recognized your technical abilities, Olivia. But not my leadership potential," I finished for him. "Fortunately, I didn't need your recognition to prove it." Before he could respond, Elena approached, tablet in hand. "Sorry to interrupt, but Alexander Westbrook is on the line. He wants to discuss expanding our services to their European division." Marcus's expression soured further at the mention of his former client. "If you'll excuse me," I said, not bothering to hide my satisfaction. "Duty calls." As I walked away, I heard Marcus mutter something under his breath. I didn't need to hear it clearly to know it was an admission of defeat. The anniversary party for Summit Partners was held in the rooftop garden of our new offices. We'd outgrown the converted factory space within 9 months, moving to a larger location to accommodate our expanding team of 28 professionals. The Chicago skyline provided a stunning backdrop as I raised a glass to toast our assembled team and clients. "1 year ago today, 5 of us took a leap of faith," I began, nodding toward Elena, Daniel, Patricia, and Ryan. "We believed there was a better way to serve clients, a model that valued outcomes over hours, partnership over transactions." I gestured to the room full of employees and clients. "Today, Summit Partners is the fastest-growing legal consulting firm in the Midwest. We've revolutionized industry practices, saved our clients millions, and created a workplace where talent is recognized and rewarded based on merit, not politics." Alexander Westbrook stepped forward to add his own toast. "As Summit's first client, I took a risk," he acknowledged. "But it's paid off beyond my expectations. Our legal costs are down 32%, our contract turnaround time has been cut in half, and for the first time in company history, our legal department is viewed as a strategic asset rather than a cost center." As applause filled the rooftop, I caught Elena's eye. She raised her glass slightly in a private salute, a knowing smile on her face. We'd done more than build a successful business, we'd changed an industry. Later, as the party wound down and most guests had departed, I found myself alone at the edge of the rooftop, looking out at the city lights. The door opened behind me, and Elena joined me at the railing. "Quite a year," she remarked. "Indeed," I smiled, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. "Did you see the latest industry report? Garrison and Brooks has lost 40% of its market share. They're laying off associates and relocating to smaller offices next month." Elena nodded. "I heard Marcus was asked to step down. The executive committee finally ran out of patience. And Vanessa left the industry entirely. Apparently she's selling real estate now." I took a sip of champagne, letting the information settle. There was a time when this news would have filled me with vindictive pleasure. Now, it felt more like the natural conclusion to a story I'd moved beyond. You know, Eleanor said thoughtfully, when you first approached me about Summit Partners, I thought you were primarily motivated by revenge. I smiled ruefully. That was certainly part of it. But somewhere along the way, it became about something bigger. I nodded, looking out at the city spread before us. It became about proving that there's value in valuing people properly, both employees and clients, that doing the right thing can also be the profitable thing. Eleanor clinked her glass against mine. To proper valuation, she said. To proper valuation, I echoed. As we stood there in comfortable silence, I reflected on the journey of the past year. Marcus had severely underestimated me, just as he'd underestimated the hunger in the market for a different approach to legal consulting. His mistake had cost him his company's premier client, his reputation, and ultimately his position. My lack of executive presence had transformed into industry leadership. My technical skills had built the foundation for a thriving business. But the sweetest victory wasn't in Marcus's downfall or even in Summit's success. It was in creating an environment where talent was nurtured, expertise was valued, and work had meaning. That was the true value proposition, one that no balance sheet could fully capture, but that everyone at Summit Partners felt every day. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't about destroying what hurt you. It's about building something better in its place. And by that measure, my revenge was complete.